In the chamber this week, a high-speed heist that includes almost every heist element you can think of. We wrap up our JRPG section with a twofer of magnetic proportions, and we give our final thoughts on reviews of the Apocalypse system. Season 2 comes to a close, but our investigation into all things nerdy will continue. Join us on the next part of our fantastic voyage. All this and more on Fandom Roulette. Hey everyone, welcome to Fandom Roulette. This is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And on Fandom Roulette, this is a podcast where we talk about a myriad of nerdy things, including history, video games, tabletop RPGs, and whatever nerdy stuff that we can think of. So hey Cody, what nerdy stuff have you been up to this week, my friend?
Nerdy stuff? Mostly Dungeons and Dragons.
What? What's that?
That's kind of my MO, but...
What's Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, it's this tabletop role-playing game where you play as fantasy heroes, and you get to not only go into dungeons, but you can also fight dragons.
You go into dragons.
Yeah, you go into dragons, and you kill dungeons.
Go right in there. Go right in there.
This is like...
It's like Bowser's Inside Story, but with dragons.
What a good reference.
Oh, I know, right?
Love that game. But no, I had a game, Elf Force 1. It finally came out of our basically our 2-month hiatus. Every weekend just had been bad, kind of like how our summers usually go.
Sure.
It was just like anime conventions and people leaving town for work, and then just all this craziness. But we finally got to play, and boy howdy, was it long and fun.
Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. What nerdy stuff have you been up to?
I'm almost done with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I have literally 3 episodes left.
What?
Yeah,
You're almost done. That's crazy.
With this one, and then I have 7 seasons of Voyager and 5 seasons of Enterprise.
That's
yeah, it's
okay.
It's a lot of TV.
You painted yourself into I'm almost done with that thing. And then the camera pans over and there's fucking Mount Everest behind that you have to climb, and it's just
right.
But hey,
not super close, but hey,
you are. I would say at this point you're like a Star Trek expert.
I would say I have a fair knowledge of the Trek lore. And then some fun stuff also happened this weekend, including did you see the new Detective Pikachu trailer?
Oh, yes. I'm so excited. It's I was kind of a little skeptical with Ryan Reynolds doing Pikachu because for some reason in my head I just kept thinking Deadpool and everything else that he's been in. But you know what? I'm excited.
Oh, for sure.
And plus, the Pokemon look fucking dope.
Oh, I know. They look way better than they have literally any right to look, right?
Oh, also...
Yeah.
And Detective Pikachu just sparked this in my head. They just did the Nintendo Direct for the new Pokemon game for the Switch.
Oh, yeah. Sword and Shield?
Sword and Shield.
Where we're going to go to...
super pumped for that.
We're going to go to Poke UK?
Is that what it's supposed to be?
I think that's what it's supposed to be. It's going to be in the, it's supposed to be a United Kingdom-esque thing. And
yeah,
so,
that checks. Because, every region is kind of based off of some place in the world. But, yeah, that'll be really fun.
And, there's, people who are speculating that it's probably going to have something to do with, Polka King Arthur. Which, get ready for that.
Oh, plus... the starters, so many good memes already. I love it.
I tend to be a water kid, but
I've always been a water kid as well.
They're really testing me with these grass kids.
Honestly, though, the thing, as much as I love the starters, my big one is always going to be what it ends up being. I'll never decide solely on the intro Pokemon, although that does help.
That's fair. I'll give you
usually. Yeah. And the fact that and now I can't remember his name because it's only been out for hours at this point. the grass monkey. I hope it turns into just like the most ferocious gorilla or like super like beefy dude.
What if it turned into like King Kong?
Dude,
He couldn't physically fit on the screen.
Oh, it would be great.
That'd be pretty cool. Also, the Academy Awards were this weekend, and I'm happy to report that Spider-Verse won Best Animated Feature, which I'm really excited about.
What was it running up against?
It was up against Incredibles 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, one that I didn't recognize but looked very good. Because, there's almost always one, like, anime-style, like, movie in there.
Yeah.
It looked to be anime style. I didn't actually look it up to see. But yeah, I was really excited to see that. Also, Black Panther had a very good showing.
Nice.
It won Best Costume Design, Best Production Design in general, and Best Score, which was like surprising to me on all counts. Not that they weren't earned, it's just that Hollywood sometimes just doesn't reward superhero movies. Especially because it was going up against like two very traditional like Oscar-y like fancy dress period piece movies.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm always a little skeptical with like Hollywood awards and stuff like that because it all feels like you're kind of buying it or whatever. Like I don't know if that's the case. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it always feels like somebody like handed the guy at the podium like a $20 bill or the Hollywood equivalent of a $20 bill, and it's just like, why don't you just say this movie instead?
There's a lot of money that goes into it. You're not wrong. But yeah, it was exciting to see it, especially because like, especially from a production design standpoint, it's really cool to see the Academy Awards rewarding like basically Afrofuturism, which is like a really cool, pretty much forgotten like subgenre. Well, I mean, I don't actually know, but it was like a really big subgenre of like art and sci-fi in like the 60s when like Black Panther was being developed. And I'm sure that there still exists out there, but it was one of those deals where it's cool to see them rewarding like a sci-fi concept that's pretty much unique to like this one time period. It doesn't look like anything else that we're used to. So congratulations to Black Panther and Marvel Studios for getting on those Academy Awards, and a big old congratulations to Spider-Verse for just being the best fucking movie of 2018, because it's 2019, which I actually forgot about the other day. But
yeah, 2019 is still like new on the tongue. I had to sign paperwork today, and I almost forgot. I almost put 2018. I'm like, nope, that's not right.
I renewed my my driver's license. Ooh, wow, cool, sexy podcasting stuff.
Oh yeah, tell me about the driver's license experience. Tell me about the Ohio DMV.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a line that moved very slowly, but I still got out within an hour, so that was pretty cool. Nice. But yeah, like Ohio has like a fancy new driver's license where you have to fill out all this like fancy paperwork. You have to bring in fancy paperwork, and I signed all the paperwork 2018, and she had me go back and white it out and have a write in 19 on everything. So
wrecked.
pretty exciting stuff, Joe.
I hit that point. I had to renew my license last year, and they hadn't quite switched over to what they have to do now, because it's like something about your passport or whatever.
Yeah. Not to get too into details, but it makes it easier to fly in America to get this special new driver's license.
And I don't fly, not particularly, unless like I absolutely have to. So they were kind of like, we could set you up for the other one, but you don't have to. And I was like, you know what? I'll just come back the next time.
Sure.
But yeah, fuck that.
pretty exciting stuff, Joe and Cody.
Yeah. Oh god, what a podcast, guys! Welcome to Fandom Roulette, where we talk about our mundane lives, talking about going to the DMV and waiting in lines, ripping open a bag of Cheetos and having all the Cheeto dust fly into our faces.
There's like one person out there who like heard that and they got really excited. Like finally, they're talking about like DMV fandom. I was like.
I'm just imagining the DMV fandom, like what that looks like, and like their Tumblr presence.
Mm-hmm. It's like Oh god, their cons are just like very long lines that don't lead to anything in particular.
Yeah, like there's no sign in with anybody, and there are
Yeah.
no special guests or anything. There's just these long lines where they're all just kind of sitting there on their phones or
Hmm.
their Switch or whatever. Which, honestly, if I had my Switch and it didn't feel like such a fucking like weirdo like thing to be at a place with a long line and a Switch, like probably wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too is, well, then you like get to the front of the line, and then like you find out you did something mundanely wrong, and you're supposed to be in that line over there. And they're just like, yeah, this is what I want.
This is everything I need. We should probably go forward with the podcast.
No, I want to keep investigating this fake fandom that I just developed.
Oh yeah, you want to go down this rabbit hole?
BMVCon, yeah, man. Okay.
Oh, I'm excited.
So, anyways, hey guys, it's the finale of season 2,
Oh, that's even worse.
right? Hey man, you gotta pull out all the stops for the finale, and if it means setting up a new fandom, count me in.
Count me not in. I'm not gonna do that.
What? You're not gonna? Okay. Well, I mean,
This is one of those hills that you need to fight on
oh,
solo.
Hey, by the way, Solo was nominated for Best Visual Effects, and it didn't win, but I definitely put it onto my Oscar ballot because I lived my truth. It went to like First Man or whatever, which was like a movie about space. So like obviously it was gonna have some special effects in it, right? But like, yeah.
Okay. I understand.
The Academy Awards, they were kind of boring. They were fine. But anyway.
So tell me about history. Why don't we?
Let's take a dump on history.
Yes, let's take a dump on history.
Let's get that fully in
Good,
there.
perfect.
So anyway, this season I was talking about heists.
Yeah, where's the van?
I will say this. One of the interesting things I discovered as I was prepping for this season was that there are a lot of definitions of what a heist is, and a lot of them were more modern than I was expecting, with the exception of the first one we did, which was like Colonel, I think, Blood stealing the royal jewels. No, that was the first one we did was like tomb robbers. But I think that there might be a certain level of technology involved for it to kind of like tip the balance into heist. But it's fine because, if it happened in the past, it's history.
Oh man, he got me with that good one, that good little 2019 Joe quote.
Thank you. Listen, oh boy. So anyway, this is the Great Train Robbery. Yeah, I wanted
trains.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's why I wanted to end with this one.
I'm excited. Tell me more.
I always kind of had this one in the pocket. Like I said too, it has like a lot of elements of like what I was looking for when I was like envisioning what this season was going to sound like. So we're going to go all the way back to the year 1963. So put on your like tie dye. I think that was in the same. But anyways, so this was the robbery of the Royal Mail train that was heading from Glasgow to London on the West Coast Main Line in the early hours of August 8th, 1963. So they were on a bridge near Mentmore in Buckinghamshire, England. So they had the gang in question had tampered with one of the line side signals, which brought the train to a halt, and then a gang of 15 robbers jumped onto the train and then proceeded to rob approximately 2.6 million pounds worth of money and goods. Now, to put it into today's terms, that's approximately 53.5 million pounds today. So a pretty huge chunk of change.
Yeah, fuck, that's a lot of muns.
Yeah. And so the other thing, too, there's a couple other things. So not only was this a heist in the fact that he had a nice large crew, but there was a long period of planning where there was involving an individual named the Ulsterman. So no one's quite sure who it was. There was a person who was named in 2014, but there's no way 100% to know. And the bulk of this money was never recovered. Now, here's the other thing. They did this completely without firearms. The only thing, in fact, was that the train driver was attacked, but it was just with like a club, nothing else. And so after the robbery, the gang hid at Leather Slade Farm, and after they found the hideout, they found some incriminating evidence. But let's get into this plan. So, the plan was to intercept this Glasgow to London mail train, which was based on information from a guy named Patrick McKenna, who, like I said, this is the theory, but his nickname was the Ulsterman. Now, he was a postal worker from Salford who detailed his knowledge of how much money was being carried on these trains, and basically they were able to plan out all of the minute details. So the core team were two gentlemen named Gordon Goody and Buster Edwards. Pretty good names. And then other gentlemen named Bruce Reynolds, Charlie Wilson, and Roy James. And Bruce Reynolds assumed the role of the mastermind. Now, they were a pretty good gang, but they really had no experience stopping and robbing trains because, that's not something that your average gang does on a day-to-day, right?
What you mean? You and the Joey Joes don't go robbing trains daily? Is that what you're telling me right now?
Right. There are no Joey Joes. That's a fake.
What?
That's a fake thing.
You told me.
No, don't incriminate me.
In the pre-show that you were in a gang called Joe and the Joey Joes.
Joe and the Joe. See, that's a horrible gang name,
well,
though.
Okay. I wasn't gonna judge you on the quality of your gang name.
So anyway, they enlisted the help of another London gang, which were called the South Coast Raiders. And this group included a guy named Roger Cordray, who was a specialist in the field of how to rig tracksides, fake and rig trackside signals. Now, this group also had a couple of accomplished train robbers, which, dang, that's a cool title to have. I don't know about you, but I think that's a cool title.
Yeah, because I remember you telling me that you were an accomplished train robber.
So anyway, at final task, the FBI is going to show up in my house. There's going to be no more podcasts of jokes on you, Cody.
Damn it!
But anyway, so yeah, the total gang was about 16 men. Now, these trains that they were robbing, usually these were just designed to carry mail and money in them. So the train consisted of 12 carriages and carried about 72 post office staff who would sort the mail during the journey. So mail was loaded onto the train in Glasgow, and then would make periodic stops from a two-side collection point where local post offices would hang mail sacks on elevated train hooks, and they were caught by nets that were deployed, and then you would sort out the mail. So this was how they were able to do a relatively quick route that would go from about 6 at night from Glasgow and would arrive at about 4 in the morning in Euston Station in London. So pretty good time. And the second carriage behind the engine was also referred to sometimes as the high-valued package coach or the HVP coach, where they would carry large quantities of money and registered mail for sorting. So this was usually about $300,000, but because the previous weekend had been a UK bank holiday weekend, the total of the day was about between 2.5 and 3 million. Now, really quickly, a bank holiday, for those of you not in the know, is a kind of special term used in the UK because it's kind of like the equivalent of like our Memorial Day or things like that. It's just that for a lot of holidays in the UK, the banks would still be open. So a bank holiday was a specific holiday that was designed to give like bankers a day off, basically, because that was one of those rare occupations that worked basically every single day.
Wow, that's actually really super cool of the UK.
Yeah.
To have
so like
holidays very specific for bankers, because bankers kind of get the shit end of the stick on most holidays.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So yeah, these were like special holidays. Which from if it's my understanding that they kind of work like, you know how our holidays are usually put, or our non-date specific holidays are usually put on Mondays just so we can have like a 3-day weekend.
Yeah,
It's like the same deal. Like, you know how like Memorial Day is always like the last Monday in like May or whatever.
right.
Things like that, yeah. It's designed to give you a 3-day weekend so you can do a little bit of traveling. But anyway, so just after 3 o'clock on August 8th, the driver, who is a guy named Jack Mills, stopped the train on the West Coast Main Line at a red signal light at Sears Crossing. Now, the signal had been tampered with by the robbers, and they had covered the green light and connected a 6-volt ever-ready battery to power the red light. So the second crew member, known as the secondman or fireman, basically went out to investigate, and then he discovered that the cables had been cut. So when he made his way to return to the train, he was grabbed from behind and overpowered by one of the robbers. And basically, at this point, the driver was waiting for this gentleman to return, because once he returns, then you can start continuing on. So the rest of the gang entered, and basically at this point, because of the information they had gotten from the Ulsterman, they had knowledge of how to move through the train, found a suitable place to load their dropside truck, and they started stealing the money. And then they began had moved the train a little ways, or they had moved the truck a little bit too far down, so they had to bring it down. And basically at this point, the gang had hired a train driver who was unable to operate the newer type of locomotive, but he had driven many trains for years, so he was able to he was not able to actually drive the train. So after a while, another one of the gentlemen had to continue driving the train. Now, after they had to move it down a little ways to get to the truck. I think they ended up abandoning the train. But after they were done getting rid of all the money, or rather pulling out all the money, they had removed all but 8 of the 128 sacks of money from the HVB carriage. That took them about 20 minutes. They were got into a truck, and they had headed to a farm that was close by. It was about 27 miles away from the crime scene, and they just kind of hung out. They listened to their police scanning radio, and basically no one was allowed to move within an hour. And basically, initially they were able to get away with it. They had found a place that was far enough away that it would have gone outside of the police's dragnet system. And over time, they were able to basically get away, not scot-free, because we'll find that out in a second, but they were able to get away with most of the money. So now here's what happens next. So the robbers had cut the telephone lines in the vicinity so no one could call out for help, but there was a railman left on the train at Sears Crossing who was able to catch a passing goods train, where he raised the alarm. This was about 4:20 in the morning, and that's when they basically started going through and searching for these gentlemen. Now, one last thing, they were able to eventually catch most of the gang members. So the first gang member to be caught was a gentleman named Roger Cordray, and he was basically living in a flat above a florist shop. And the police were tipped by police widow Ethel Clark when they were just paid for this in cash, which kind of tipped her off. This is the craziest thing. So basically in 1964, there was a large trial, and it was considered like one of the biggest trials in this area's history. Basically, they moved out of the courthouse so they could have all of the lawyers and media ready. And this lasted 51 days, including 613 basically pieces of evidence and 240 witnesses. And most of the gentlemen in the gang were sentenced to jail. So there were 11 men sentenced, and of the 11, I think 8 of them ended up serving full some terms. The most average one was 30 years in prison.
Yikes.
Yeah, right.
That's a lot.
But here we go. In 1964, there were some appeals. Brian Field was the only one who was acquitted of the robbery. But in August of 1964, Wilson was able to escape from the Winson Green prison in Birmingham in under 3 minutes. And his escape team was never caught. And the leader had disappeared into the London criminal scene. So, yeah, basically, Wilson was able to escape from prison along with a couple of other people. And so, yeah, eventually, after a while, there's only one remaining member of the gang who's known to be alive. People have kind of like lost touch with them, or a few of them died in prison. But this was a pretty, there was so many aspects of this one that were kind of fascinating to me, just because, you have your very Ocean's-esque planning sequence. You have a huge gang of people. So in this case, it was 15 guys. You had your tech expert who fiddled around and dismantled the electronics that were being used. You had your driver who couldn't actually drive the train. Eventually, one of the big things that led to their eventual being arrested was that at the farm that they had hid out at, there was a game of Monopoly that the police were able to pull fingerprints from. So that was
who would have thought that a game of capitalism is what really did them in?
Right. Which, funnily enough, the one guy's lawyer was able to argue that just because they found fingerprints on this game doesn't necessarily mean that he was part of the crime. So he actually got off.
What a good lawyer.
And yeah, it's then, so you have your big trial, and the big trial happens, and then you have prison breaks after the trial. There was it was one of those deals where the story just kept continuing to roll and roll and roll, and it just got more and more fascinating at every twist and turn. I was like, this has to be the finale of my heist section. So
hell yeah, what a good way to go.
Yeah, it had a little bit of everything. So yeah, Cody, I have a question for you.
For me?
Yeah.
I know nothing about this, but shoot.
What would be your ideal mode of transportation to rob?
To rob anything?
No, if you were to would you try to do a train heist? Would you try to do
what kind of thing would I rob?
Yeah.
That? Mm-hmm. Well,
totally speculative, by the way.
Yes, totally. FBI, for those of you who are watching,
Thank you.
Purely speculative.
Please leave a 5-star review.
Well, see, the train sounds so tempting now, right? Because basically they almost did it. But gosh, I don't know. Maybe a cargo vessel.
Okay. That's cool.
With like boats and shit.
Ooh.
Just because, you know, being out in the water like that would be so isolating, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm a pirate, but oops.
Yeah, I was
That's
about to
probably
say.
what I would pick.
Why are you chopping my style, man?
What about you? What is your ideal
I mean,
transport theft?
obviously it's a boat because I'm a pirate.
But, okay, fair. I don't. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Dragnet. I've heard that used a couple times, but I don't have no
Sure.
idea what that means. What does it mean?
So it's if memory serves, it is a police term for like making a what's it called? A area of investigation smaller. Okay, so specifically it is a net drawn through a river or across ground to trap fish or game, but is a systemic search for someone or something, especially criminals or criminal activity. So yeah, much like a net, it's like a very thorough, like you just kind of choose like an area and you just kind of slowly go through and like you basically you leave no stone unturned, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's the dragnet.
Cool.
Yeah. So in
Well,
theory,
awesome.
you know, if you have enough people spread out over enough area, like you're going to, in theory, bump into someone eventually, right?
Exactly, because, you know, crime doesn't pay.
Okay.
So, you know what I think it's time for?
I don't know, Cody. Do you think it's time for the
Middle section.
Hey,
Boy,
everyone.
howdy, you bet it is.
Oh, it's the middle section.
Guys, welcome to the middle section where we tell you how to help us out and how to get your voice heard on the podcast, because we like to converse, but we also would love to bring some of this out to the audience. So This is how you do it.
Yes.
First, we have a Twitter handle. If you
Yes,
go to
we do.
fandomr_podcast on Twitter, you will find stuff about, you know, quotes for the podcast and silly images that my wife creates, and they're super funny. The last week's was a real good one.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's also where you can communicate with us. We are always kind of paying attention to our social media platforms. So if you have questions, comments about the things that we talk about, hit us up. If you don't want to be so out publicly in the open, you can email us at fanroulettepodcast@gmail.com. That is where we take our questions and stuff. During the blunder years of season 0, we did a lot of like D&D questions, but we would love to open that up to history questions, video game questions, and tabletop question. You know, you name it. We want to be a part of that. So you can do it there, or you can go to our lovely website at www.fandomroulette.com, where you can get information about us, and you can get all the podcast links, and you can get all of our social media links and all that. And at the very bottom, there's a little area where you can tell us how much you love the heist section, or all the dirty fanfic of our garbage kids. You can put that all in that little box there, and it'll send to our email. So you don't have to necessarily give us your email if that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We are also on SoundCloud and iTunes and Google Play and Spotify, and eventually we'll be on all the things.
Heck yeah, we are.
If you're, we're always looking for new ways to branch out, get people to listen to our content. So stay tuned for that. And then we're also on Instagram and Tumblr and Facebook and of course Twitter. But
What?
We're on those things at Fandom Roulette. So if you're looking for silly, out of context quotes from the show, or just kind of general information whenever we have to, skip a week, or, because like with our new seasonal format, we're going to be skipping the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that'll be an area where you can get all that information.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's it. That's the middle section.
Da-da-bop-ba-doop-bop.
So
Cody,
were we able to get a guest on for the video game section?
Wait, let me look. I told them to be on time this week. I'm looking around. I don't see anything, but there's like a cardboard box here.
Oh no, Joe.
Yeah?
Move very slowly. There's someone in the box.
What was that noise?
No, he's gonna get you.
Weak. No, that was bad. It's...
Oh no.
Hey, Cody.
Hi, Snake. I knew who you were as soon as he said the box, but I couldn't help him.
It's me, it's Snake. I took over for Joe.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Hey.
I think the numbers are really going to rise now that we have the famous Solid Snake on the podcast.
Yeah, I got all the dominant genes, and my brother Liquid got all the recessive genes. Right?
What a weird thing to bring up.
Hey,
Snake.
man, have you ever had a conversation with my twin brother Liquid? He brings that shit up all the time.
I bet you he does. He sounds like a whiner.
Yeah. Also, I think like in the fiction of the game, I'm like 900 years old right now or something, because like clones age at a faster rate than regular human beings do.
I don't want to get into the convolutedness of why you're wrong and how to explain why I know the things that I do about this, but yes, sure, you were 900 years old because of clones and shit.
Wait, who are the people going to believe? You or me, the actual character?
That's fair. It's true. What do I know? I'm simply just a man who's played the Metal Gear Solid games way too much.
That's pretty cool. Have you met my friend Otacon?
Yeah, I hear he likes those animes.
Yeah, he does like those animes. I watched one time. It was pretty good. Yeah. It was called Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? I think that was it.
I actually think that is the name of an anime.
It is actually the name of...
Oh, God.
I might have the wording like slightly wrong on it, but like
yeah, but that's the general theme of the title.
Yeah,
doesn't that feel a little weird?
Oh, dude, it's like a harem anime set in a dungeon.
Oh no!
Yeah, someone okayed that.
Well, I mean, harem anime exists, so
that is fair. That thing
shrug
is the broad. Okay, so anyway, oh, snap. We're talking too much about anime. So, oh, wait. I'm back, by the way. It's me again.
Oh, Snake had to go on a secret mission and get that hind D.
He heard us talking too much about anime, so he, like, broke my attic window and ziplined out of here, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
And then he, like, hit this ball a couple of times, and, like, oh, God. Oh, gee. Oh, he's, like, firing, like, rockets... powered grenades at me.
Well, that's the end. That's the end of Phantom Roulette. Unfortunately,
my damage is over 300%, but I still have 2 stocks left.
Oh shit! Did you eat good old fashioned rations to heal yourself up?
I ate a fruit with an M on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's just a tomato. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It healed like all of my damage or whatever.
Nice. So, long bit aside.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk about video games.
What?
And yeah, usually
shit.
we just take a bit too far and lose the entire audience. But today,
Pretty sure that's what podcasting is all about, though. It's about taking a bit too far and losing your entire audience in the process.
right. So today, as the finale of the JRPG section, I decided that I would talk about 2 JRPGs
Whoa.
instead of just one.
That's a genuine twofer.
Right, and the initial idea is I wanted to talk about one that I really liked that I didn't get to play growing up, and I wanted to talk about one that literally bored me so bad that like I never finished it and it wasn't super great. But then, yeah, and then I did some research and gosh, it's a lot weirder than I was expecting. So I'll start with the good and end on the bad because that's how this works.
I would hope so.
So I started with Chrono Trigger, which was a game that I hadn't brought up, but it's totally like the most JRPG that I know from like growing up.
Hell yeah.
It was made by Squaresoft, or how people are familiar with them now, Square Enix, or just Square in general. It was made in 1995, and it's kind of the art behind it is made from Akira Toriyama, who is noted for his work on Dragon Quest and probably a little more familiar on the stateside Dragon Ball.
Oh.
And yeah, it's an action JRPG set in kind of a fantasy Middle Ages universe, think standard medieval fantasy, where the main hero, who you could name, or Chrono, along with his companions, travel through time, thwarting this evil alien named Lavos, who's bent on destroying everything.
Yeah.
Pretty JRPG plotline there.
I would say so.
I love this game. It's super good. I think this it's probably not the first. I'm sure somebody will correct me on that. But this is where turn-based combat started to kind of take a back seat, at least for this. And Square's kind of infamous ATB, or active time battle system, basically your speed determines when you get to act on your turn based on like a timer. So the higher your speed, the faster your timer goes down, and basically you get to, at that point, select your attack. And it's not turn-based in the way that rounds are like set up like, oh, well, you're this fast, so you always go first, and so on and so forth. I like this game because it's super long game. It's about, it's anywhere between 20-40 hours of just like kind of the normal run, or 60 plus, depending on how you want to go through it, because it's got multiple endings. And all of them are unique depending on how you get to the end finale fight. And instead of just kind of the random encounters of earlier Final Fantasy games and Dragon Warrior games, the monsters are on the tiles with you, and you can kind of choose whether or not to try to avoid them or directly attack and pushing, into a fight scene, basically. Yeah. It also had some awesome characters and subplots and side quests. 2 of the characters is a sword-wielding frog knight named Frog.
He's my favorite character, maybe.
And a future robot with sentience. That's just, I think his name is Prometheus, but the party just calls him Robo.
Oh, Robo.
They use basically like, they've added magic and this kind of a thing called tech, which is basically a kind of an easier way to be like, these are kind of your special moves that run off of your MP or your mana. And basically you could do interesting tech combos with certain characters, like Frog and Chrono could do this like cool cross slash move if they worked together. And there was a lot of these neat ideas coming out in 1995, and the game had like this great polish, the subplots, like you learn about these characters more. There are certain choices that will affect the game, and I don't want to spoil any of that because if you haven't played it, I would like this game is definitely worth a pickup.
Get out there and do it. Can you get it on any of those like cool Switch store or things like that?
So right now, from what I've found, I don't know if it's on the Virtual Console, but as I'm aware, that no longer exists, or I'm not sure how that works. But basically, you can get it on the Super Nintendo, although that's kind of expensive. They did a port for the DS, and also you can buy it on Steam, and it's actually really cheap on Steam. It's $15, but right now they're doing a sale this week for all of, like, the Square games. So right now it's like $7.50 in US dollars. Yeah. And it's a super fun game if you're looking for a really long JRPG and at an affordable price. And it's an old game, so you don't need like a very heavily beefy computer to run it. Chrono Trigger is really good. So let's talk about.
Oh, wait, can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Because I've played like most of Chrono Trigger, and then something happened where I was playing it on an emulator, and my like file got corrupted, and I was really sad.
That is quite a sad story.
Which is why I'm like actually really excited to like probably jump on this.
Hell yeah!
But it has probably one of my most favorite video game moments in video game history. Which is a spoilery moment, that I'm sure was probably powerful for you too. I'll just give you the outliers. It involves cutting a mountain in half.
Yes. Oh God, that was a very cool, like, that was like an RPG moment. If I had ever heard of one.
And so yeah, it's a good moment, and it's one of my favorites in video game history. So
yeah, it's definitely a good game. But moving on over, I decided I wanted to pick a weird game. A game that wasn't super, like, mainstream or old or even Nintendo, because I know a lot of the games that I talked about were very exclusively Nintendo. So, for this next game,
oh boy,
I decided I'd talk about some might call it a gem. I personally think it's a stinker.
Oh God.
Is Lost Odyssey, a JRPG that came out on the Xbox 360 in 2008. It was made by, I believe it was Mistwalker, a company that was made after one of the Final Fantasy developers left Final Fantasy. If the story remains true, I don't know. The internet's a weird place. But anyways.
That's true. That's accurate.
Basically, this was a JRPG in the same line of, like, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, or even 10 at this point. I think it's so funny that this game came out a year before 13, Final Fantasy 13, because it looks very, it reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy 10 in, like, if you're thinking of, like, graphics, like, that's about what you could expect from this game, is like Final Fantasy X. It has the usual trappings of RPGs, such as random encounters, stats, towns and cities, a world to explore, etc., etc. The quote-unquote unique thing about the battle system, because it's still very much a turn-based game, is they call it the aim ring system. And basically what happens is when you make attacks, there is a ring that pops up, and you hold your trigger, you hold the trigger down, and then you let go when the bigger circle slowly closes in and matches the circle on screen. So
weird.
Yeah, kind of similar to the Super Mario RPG or the Mario and Luigi saga, where like you have to like kind of do extra stuff, but basically you equipped certain rings that have either more damage or do extra damage to a certain monster, stuff like that. But in practice, it ended up just kind of being this like really distracting like piece of, because it's like this big ring on the screen that like flows in and like takes up the entire screen as you're like trying to like watch these characters attack and all that stuff. And I feel like it was personally done better in those other games that I mentioned, like Super Mario RPG, where it's like, give me a tutorial, but don't make it like the whole fucking screen when I'm playing the game. Like, you almost have no confirmation in Super Mario RPG if you did it right. Which I'd rather that than this thing that, like, totally takes me out of that experience. Or the Mario and Luigi games where it feels more impactful. Because, like, if you fuck that up in Mario and Luigi, like the Superstar Saga, Bowser's Inside Story, like, that has severe detriment to your gameplay. Like, you can die if you constantly fuck up those, like, timed attacks. And in this game, you know, not only was it just, like, a big eyesore, but it just wasn't, like, super impactful to the gameplay.
Sure.
Game takes place in kind of this magic industrial revolution where automobiles and robots are created through, like, the use of lightning magic and shit like that. Kind of, you know, a fairly standard, you know, magic industrial plot setting where the kind of overtones and the general themes is kind of like the, you know, the age of knights and loyalty and things like that are kind of getting slowly taken away by this industrial revolution.
Oh, no.
Right, which is a very kind of tried and done, like, background drop.
Sure.
And this game is slow. Like, it's got stories. It's got things that you got to read on the screen that are big chunks of paragraphs. Its story is very, like, silly and, like, just lacks any kind of drama, at least at the beginning. Because, like, you play as Kame, who's an immortal. And immortals are these people that can't die because they're technically from another parallel dimension and they can't die in this one for reasons. And basically this Kame individual, or Kame or whatever, his name is spelled Kaim, so I'm not sure how you're supposed to say that.
Yeah.
But either way, he's lived for hundreds, potentially thousands of years, so he's kind of this, like, he's just kind of like an asshole, but sometimes he comes off as, like, edgy, like, I've seen everything, and he often doesn't, like, take anybody's shit.
Okay.
And there's this kind of thing going on where, like, you know, he can't remember, like, he basically has, like, super amnesia of his entire life, and he's starting to get it back through all this shit, but, like, it's kind of implied right at the beginning, like, Kime lost his whole family and anything that he loved before all this shit happened because he's immortal. And that's a really cool story development.
Yeah.
However, as you progress through the game, you find your wife. She's alive. She's also immortal. So a lot of that drama is just gone immediately. Like, oh yeah, I forgot, I have a wife. And then both of them start remembering that they had a kid, and they, like, try to bring that back, and it's like, oh cool, so they had this kid, but, like, something bad happened. And so they both find out that the kid died, but, you know, in true anime fashion, the kid didn't die, and then later died after having 2 kids. And guess who hangs out in your party?
One of the kids.
Your wife and your 2 grandkids.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, there was something really cool about Kime being, like, this kind of, you know, rogue, like, he's lost everything. And then it's just kind of like, I don't think it took very long to introduce all this other shit. And it's just like, well, there you go. Drama free. And then you find out they lost their memory because of some asshole who's also an immortal and basically has been, like, you know, mind fucking all these people and putting them through traumatic events to give them amnesia, because that's a thing.
That's not fun.
And so there are cool elements in this game, but the game is just such a slog to get through, and it, like, wants you to be enveloped in this magic industrial world, but, like, I've seen it a million times, so it's like all these paragraphs of, like, time like remembering things as he's talking to people, and it's such a slog. And like as soon as I got to the grandkids, I was like, I'm done. I don't want them in my party. I've had enough of this world and how slow it's going. I'm out. It basically like wraps a lot of concepts together like that have already been done, but it just doesn't feel like it's doing anything new, or it's not doing anything that wows me. You know, like I've seen better JRPG stories than this. I've seen mechanics done better than this. I think, and I don't want to shit on this game to the point where it's like I don't think it's completely unplayable. Like I think it's acceptable. Like if you know, and that's why I don't like to number these things, because like it feels weird giving this a number when like I personally hate it, but I'm sure there's like people out there who want a really long RPG who might not get so caught up in all of this extra stuff, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I would say this game's acceptable, and if you're an RPG fan looking for like a lost gem, Lost Odyssey is a JRPG. But I don't know, man. This one kind of I feel like they kind of
put that on the box. It's a JRPG.
It's a JRPG. So yeah, that is the season finale of JRPGs. A good one that everyone should pick up, and hopefully pick up this week as it's on sale, and maybe avoid Lost Odyssey if you see it in a bargain bin. You're like, huh, what's that?
That sounds cool.
It's probably not very good, but hey, you might have a different opinion on me. Hit me up. Let me know how you feel about Lost Odyssey.
Hell yeah.
Oh, do you smell that too?
I do smell it. It smells like someone put stinky feet into rotten milk.
It smells like when someone hasn't showered in weeks and then went running.
It's got a good musk going.
Ugh.
Bleh.
Gross.
Gross
Guys,
sounds.
It's a garbage kid or a trash tyke or whatever you want to call him.
Or
a waste cherub.
That was the one.
Yeah. And I got a good one this week. I got a good
excited.
name.
Okay, let's hear it.
Their name is Sunrise Spellcaster.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yes, and they are a human paladin.
Wait, how did you meet Sunrise?
On the East Coast.
No, I mean, like, what did you do to come up with this garbage kid?
Ah, yes, you're right. While staring off at the sunrise, I used a book. Yeah. I used a book. It's a fifth edition D&D supplement called Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And I know what you're thinking.
There's a lot of stuff in it.
It's got a shit ton of stuff. But it also has a really good area for basically rolling tables to figure, creating NPCs and characters. And every week, Joe and I take turns basically building these characters using patent pending, super awesome name generators and a lot of dice.
A lot of dice.
So this week, we're going to talk about Sunrise.
All right, let's hear about this friend.
Sunrise knew who their parents were and was born at home.
That's nice.
Sunrise was the youngest of 4 and was raised by a stepmother because their parents were imprisoned and taken away.
Ooh, rough.
They lived a modest lifestyle and moved around a lot, not having a permanent residence.
Okay.
Sunrise spent most of their childhood alone with no close friends.
Yikes.
Sunrise became a paladin because they served as a paladin squire and learned everything they needed to swear their own sacred oath.
Okay, that's not too bad. Not too bad.
Sunrise fights so that future generations will not have to.
Aww.
Their symbol is a black heart, signifying that emotions such as pity do not sway your dedication to their oath.
Uh-oh.
Wrote that in the wrong tense.
That's fine. I do that
Their
sometimes.
nemesis is a high priest who is a misguided fool and wants Sunrise to abandon their religion.
No.
Sunrise is tempted by greed. Regardless of how much glory and treasure they amass, it's never enough.
Uh-oh.
Sunrise is 23 years old
Got it.
and has had 4 events leading up to this moment.
Oh, wow. Busy 23 years.
Yeah, first, Sunrise spent a time working their profession and made some extra money.
All right. Sounds good.
Second, they made an enemy of an adventurer, and Sunrise is not to blame for this rift.
Uh-oh.
Next, they would make a friend with an adventurer.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, kind of balancing out.
That'd be weird if it was the same adventurer.
That would be weird, but I'm going to leave that up to the audience.
To fate.
And then finally, Sunrise fought in a battle.
Ooh.
They survive the battle, of course, but suffers from terrible nightmares in which they relive the experience.
Interesting.
Yes, so that is Sunrise Fellcaster. Now, Joe, using our patent-pending Garbage Kid Raider, developed by the top leading scientists of the world, would Sunrise go into Hot Topic, and would they buy something?
All right, Cody. I have a controversial opinion.
Oh, do tell.
I'm going to say that they mistook assistant manager Bradley at the Hot Topic for a high priest trying to sway them away from their religion. Because they looked in and they saw all of these things like with demons and with bloody letters, and they're like, clearly this is no place of religion. And Bradley was like, do you want to like come in here and like check out some of the stuff that we're selling? We got like Funko Pops. And then our character was like, be gone, high priest, trying to turn me away from my religion. So no, I would say that they don't go into Hot Topic.
Okay. I think Sunrise has gone in here, maybe once or twice, but did not buy anything. I think Sunrise is too pure for that.
Yeah. So you don't think that assistant manager Bradley was the evil high priest?
I mean, I love that. And if someone makes fanfic of the evil high priest Bradley show up, you know, double kudos for them.
Yeah.
But
because obviously
not
the
my story.
manager's never around, so it might actually pocket that character concept.
See, this is why we make these, so we can pocket these characters for later.
All right, now moving into our last little section. So this season during Tabletop RPGs, we have been talking about the Apocalypse system, specifically through the PDF Simple Worlds, which was a really nice a PDF that is free, that they kind of teach you how to take the Simple Worlds approach and make it into anything you want. But of course, there's a lot of already pre-made ones out there that are fun as well, including Apocalypse World, Dungeon World, Monster Heart, Monster of the Week, Capes, I think is one, all kinds of different ones. But we were talking about it in terms of a couple of different things, which was things that we thought were cool about the system, things that we thought were maybe a little bit limiting of the system. So we wanted to use this as kind of like our final thoughts section of the program. So if you don't mind, Cody, mind if I kick it off?
I give the mic to you.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. So there's I think that the main point I want to bring up is that I think it's something that is both to this system's benefit and maybe slightly to its detriment. It's that its simplicity is key when it comes to the Apocalypse system. So this is a system that, as we mentioned, uses 2d6, so you can, in theory, go and play it right now if you have really any regular board game at your house. Most all of them use two 6-sided die. You could literally go and play a game right now if you want to. It's very easy to learn. It's very easy to follow. It is not a crunchy system by any stretch of the imagination. And it does a lot of really cool things. Like it gives you guidance on what kind of questions you can ask to your game master. They almost always have really simple instructions on how things like combat work, how rolls work. Because it's only 2d6, the thresholds of rolls aren't incredibly difficult, nor are they incredibly high. It is I've argued from the beginning, and I will still argue, I think that if you have a person who is interested in playing a role-playing game, but is maybe a little bit intimidated by Dungeons & Dragons because of, how mathy it is and things like that, I would, show them this and see what they think and if they like it. And if they enjoy themselves, but they're looking for something a little bit more difficult, then that allows you to kind of open up the world to more crunchy. Now, while I will also say, I said at the top that simplicity is a benefit, but I would also argue that it's a little bit of a detriment. After you get going and play for a while, it can potentially start feeling a little bit repetitive. Mainly because, like I said, there are like a list of like 5 or 6 questions. There are limited things that your characters can do, especially at lower levels. Now, as you continue to improve, you can start getting really cool, weird, wild stuff. But basically, once you've learned the game, it kind of follows not necessarily a pattern, but you find yourself doing a lot of the same things. And I will say this too, its simplicity is really nice, but sometimes you want something a little bit meatier. Sometimes you want something a little bit more difficult. At that case, I would recommend going to, probably 5e, I think would be a really good next step, or maybe find out another system to try out. One last thing, though, I will say, I do love the fact that it has built-in party cohesion, which I think is really nice. So it allows you and your characters and your players to kind of get an understanding of who you are and what you're doing there, which I think is really cool, because sometimes, as I've mentioned in the past, sometimes that can be the biggest hurdle to a new D&D group, where, sometimes, or especially like a first-time DM, like sometimes there's no sense of party cohesion. Sometimes it will create a level of difficulty that kind of moves throughout the campaign. Whereas this one, at the very least, how your characters know one another, which is nice, because at the very least, if you have a level of friendship or even a certain level of enmity, at least you know that you are traveling with people who are familiar with you. So, those are kind of my intro thesis thoughts. Do you want to drop in and do your thesis thoughts, Cody?
Of course I do. So, upon investigating the system, instead of saying what I think it should be, or kind of heavy opinions on it, because I feel like that could be misconstrued into, fact or law, sure, I'll say what I would use a system powered by the apocalypse for.
Okay.
Personally, and the kind of person I am, I like a little bit of crunch. So I probably wouldn't use a system like this for a long campaign unless it was heavily modified for not only progression, but adding a little more crunch to the Powered by the Apocalypse system. Just because, like you said, it is very rules light. And I do like a system that can hold your hand in a way on certain things instead of leaving decisions completely up to the DM. I think that can be stressful to sure, new and budding DMs, if you will. But I love using the Powered by the Apocalypse system for one-shots or little mini adventures, like something I know we're not going to be playing for a year, but maybe for a month or two.
Sure.
But it's totally up to, again, my thoughts on it. I do think that its openness and its kind of rules light leads to a level of creativity, but also for some people, like me included, I find my most creative moments when I'm in a box that I have to work with.
Fair enough.
So for me, Powered by the Apocalypse doesn't really spark my creativity, but I know it can for other people.
Sure.
It's kind of a double-edged sword that way. I think this is great if you're looking to get into the role-playing game world and you really want to kind of do your own thing and you want to make your own stuff. Like, this is a perfect area, and this is also a great area to like get people into role-playing games, because throwing something like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 or Planescape, all these other games with lots of like heavy rules and that stuff, that can be very daunting, and that can be very much like, whoa, I don't want to touch that. That sounds like a lot. I think games that use the Powered by the Apocalypse system, like Monster of the Week and, the other games that we've talked about before, they're great, like, stepping stones into it. Or like, hey, I'm going to run a one-shot. Like, these systems are really good if you need to run a one-shot next week. Yeah. And you have to prep for that. Because, like, D&D, you might have to buy a book or find things online. And you don't know if any of that's going to work. But, like, it's fairly easy to get a one-shot going using Powered by the Apocalypse or Simple World and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I would agree with that.
I would use it for shorter term games or introducing somebody to the RPG world. I think this is a great system for that. But my personal preference on how rules and stuff work, I wouldn't use one of these for a long-term campaign unless it was like heavily baked in its own rules, because not everything based on not everything that is powered by the Apocalypse is simple. Yeah. Like we got Blades in the Dark, which basically took the base concept and really expanded upon that in a lot of different ways. So I would be okay, like if I read up on it, I would be okay running Blades in the Dark.
Yeah, you could. I was actually going to say Blades in the Dark might be the exception of something that could sustain a longer term game.
Yeah, and like I might do Monster of the Week for a longer term, but I would have to come up with probably more mechanics or more to that game, because I do feel like at some point I'm going to run out of monsters to throw at people.
Well, can I just say this as well? Like, I think a perfect example of in a couple of ways, like magic in Monster of the Week, like you just kind of do it. Yeah. And you just kind of like choose the effect. Whereas like in D&D, there's lots of things to consider. Like, is it a ranged spell? Is it an AoE spell? Is like, how long does it take to cast it? Is it useful in or out of combat? All of these different questions, that whereas like with Monster Week, you just, like I said, you just kind of do it. Or, similarly, the difference between, like finesse weapons versus like melee weapons versus handheld weapons, where it's like they all function a little bit differently, but like, you just roll to kick some ass and you do it. Now I will say one of the things that I kind of dig about Monster of the Week is the fact that their particular harm system is a mutual harm system. So like it kind of discourages you to just kill everything, because chances are you'll probably get pretty hurt in the process if you go that direction. I think that's cool. There are definitely aspects of the Monster or of the Apocalypse system that make you think about RPGs in different ways. But like you said, I like a little bit of crunch as well in my RPG. So
yeah, for sure. But this is definitely one that people, especially if you're looking for something different and you've done a lot of stuff, like this one's a fairly. It's not only is it a fun creative exercise, I feel like, but it's just a fairly like easygoing system. If you need a break from, number crunching and, potentially complicated role-playing games, like this one's perfect,
Like I said, I played an Apocalypse game last month and I had a blast doing it. Like it was a lot of fun. So. Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. You should look it up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Check out Simple Worlds. And I don't know. I think it might be also beneficial if you're thinking of being a first time DM. Maybe that'd be a good place to start. So,
hell yeah!
All right. Thank you guys for listening to yet another episode of Fandom Roulette. As we mentioned a couple of times, this is the season finale, so we are going to be taking a couple of weeks off as we prep for the next season, where we ask ourselves the big questions of what do we think you guys would be interested in listening to. So we'll probably be coming within at some point over the next 2 weeks. We will drop a mini-sode where we talk about where the next season is going, and then we will kind of go from there. So, yeah. Once again, thank you for listening. Go back to the middle section to learn about our social media. Please give us a follow, a share, tell a friend. Please like, rate, review, subscribe on wherever you're allowed to do that. So I know you can definitely do that on Apple. Help us move up those ranks so we can, kind of get some more exposure. Who knows? We get picked up by a company or something like that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But signing off for Fam Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.